It's just the new chairs are
So
yeah,
comfy.
they're amazing.
I might lean back. I could
Uh,
fall asleep. They're so comfy. And
Yes.
your pillow too, right?
I have a pillow. Yep,
Oh,
pillow.
they feel the same, Jeff.
They're
Oh, okay.
amazing.
That is yours.
I didn't squish yours. I just threw it at the chair.
Yep. And then they just stick.
Okay, let's move this out of the way.
Okay. The excitement of the chairs. So exciting.
So, yeah, definitely one more time. Well, not one more time, but multiple more times. Sevan tints.
Here we go.
Uh,
What you got for me this time?
yeah,
You always bring me the goods. I think it's better if I don't actually like watch it and I kind of get to hear it from your perspective. And then if there's something that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'll
yeah.
go get more detail to kind of see what he's saying.
It came to me. He did a podcast, and it came to me. He said, "Are we really in love with um, are we really in love with CrossFit right now,
Mm-hmm.
or are we really in love with Greg's CrossFit?" Like that's the question that he brought up that I really I had to dig into it. Is it are we loyal to Greg's CrossFit, and
Mm-hmm.
so we deal with this CrossFit that we have now?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to mind was that it's interesting because as much as Greg was the one that created it in the light that it was, he's also the one that flipped it up on its head too. So
Yes.
which one, I guess, which one are you talking about? Like, are we talking CrossFit from what, 07
Yeah.
to 19?
Yeah.
And then 19 to now?
But we'll never know what he had planned after the 19. You know what I mean? We don't know. So, I mean, for me, when I think about it before 2019,
Okay.
before he got rid of me. Because I don't know what he would have done after he got rid of the media, after he, made it like universal for just
Country, like
yeah,
country representation
yeah.
and yeah.
So I don't know what that is, but I mean, to me, I feel like I'm loyal to the CrossFit before that. I I can't say whether I'd be loyal to the Greg Glassman CrossFit after 2019, but the CrossFit before that, yeah, I'm absolutely.
Why don't you think that you would be like loyal to post
It's not fair.
2019?
It's not fair for me to say because I don't know what he would have done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
But what
I
kind of made you change? Or was it just like because the changes were so abrupt in 19 that it was kind of like what
I
could be from then?
no, I listen. I watched the games in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, it was fun. I got what I needed out of it, I guess, if you want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I just don't know where it was headed after that, so I can't say, you know, where he
Yeah.
was going. I, I but also too, it could be just because there was change. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not a big change fan. I don't like
You're not
change.
alone. There are many people that don't like change. And I think that when you're expecting something to be the same as it's always been, when it's changed, it's hard to see any sort of positive in that change.
Yeah.
So obviously for him, he felt like that there was something missing, whether it was the representation of more countries and getting more people. Because again, the goal at the end of the day, from his methodology, is to get CrossFit into as many homes as possible. Because remember, if I go to CrossFit, then I'm going to bring that same knowledge one way or another into my home, into my child, into my relation. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
if you get the goal is to get CrossFit in more homes to save more lives.
Yeah, when you
So
join CrossFit, you're joining CrossFit because it
yeah, I mean, fill in the blank,
it
whatever
kind of
you're,
is a
yeah.
cult. Like your whole life kind of starts to,
Mm-hmm.
revolve around it. You want to sleep early so you can get up early and go work out. You want to, fix your diet so that, your Fran time's better. You want to
Mm-hmm.
do it. So it is kind of, the cult that people say that it is.
Yeah, and I think for him, I think that was always the goal, is to get CrossFit to more people and to get more eyes and show the possibility and live healthier, longer lives.
Then I
So,
kind of really don't understand why he got rid of the media team, because the media now, you can't find anything on it.
mhm,
You can't, if you look it up, it's not, I mean, it's not even what to do today.
mhm.
It's not even a workout or a WOD or it's none of that.
Yeah, and in our lives right now, the biggest way to reach more people is through media, is through social media,
Yeah.
is through shares and likes and as many eyes on it as you can on YouTube, all that type of stuff. That's the biggest platform for it. I almost wonder if it was a money thing, as most things are. Like he didn't want to spend that much money anymore on it. Not saying that he didn't want any of it,
I mean,
but
to me, the thing that I still think is that he always wanted to return it to CrossFit health.
yeah.
Like his message, Greg's message was always, it's about the world's most vexing problem.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. That's my point when I say, like, for him, I believe that his mission was to get CrossFit into as many houses as possible with CrossFit Health. Um,
and now he's kind of doing that with Sevan, right? So he's on Sevan every week.
mhm.
They talk about it every week.
So maybe it was because all the media was, or the big media that was surrounding CrossFit was just about the games. So maybe it was that form of media where, if you have somebody that's in the space that follows around the athletes, that gets to live that life, that gets to be around the pros and all that type of stuff, and then you're telling them that they can't, that they can't do it anymore because CrossFit's not going to pay them anymore. But you can still do media, but you can do media in this capacity of whatever
Right.
that is. But you can't, we're not paying for you to travel anymore. We're not paying you to follow around, the Rich Fronings, the Matt Frasers, the Tia Toomey's, the Patrick Vellners. Like, we're not paying you to do
Yeah.
that. So we need to let you go from CrossFit unless you want to. And I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm just like, situationally thinking that this could have been a conversation that they wanted to shift back to media being strictly CrossFit Health. But like you said, like, is there much CrossFit Health being shared now?
No.
Like, I don't see it. I also don't follow just CrossFit media anymore. We learn from our people, whether you're watching Sevan, I watch the Buttery Bros, we both watch, or I watch like Lauren Khalil and find out stuff from her. Like, that's kind of where we get our stuff now. We don't
Yeah,
exactly go.
I watch Hiller, I watch
I watch
Sevan.
Hiller too.
Yeah. Thank you. Admit it. It's
I
fine.
watch Hiller. Sevan, it depends on who he has on that I'll start to turn it on. But I will openly and honestly admit that I have never sat down and watched an entire Sevan except yours. That's it.
It's all you have now. It's that's the only place that you can go, right? Like I call them Sevan's Avengers. You have to go there, and then there's the Outlier podcast that you go to.
But do you only go there because they're your favorite, or do you honestly feel like, because I feel like the crossover between everybody is that they're sharing the same thing. One person might have a little bit more insight depending on who it's about, depending on who they know, depending on their connections. But I
I
still
go
feel,
to
go ahead.
I go to every podcast to hear the different opinions, right?
Okay.
So I'm not opposed to hearing opinions different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go to the podcast to listen to the difference of opinions.
Mm-hmm.
If Sevan has one opinion, if Hiller has one opinion,
You go try to find
then I'll
another
go
one.
try to find the other opinion to see what they say, and then I just weigh it out and see and make decisions for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear both opinions to the situation.
Do you feel like they're always different?
No, not
Most
always.
of them are the same, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
eh,
Eh.
uh,
Eh.
sometimes
It depends on the topic.
yeah, they kind of, I mean, there really is a humongous difference, and there's a humongous divide between the people in the space,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I can go back and forth with either one. I'll have, you know, uh dissenting feelings towards one podcast and the other, and then I'll just it's like the truth here.
The truth
Where
there.
one story's here,
Yep.
one story's there, the truth's in the middle. I
Yep.
just,
And also too, like when we hear it from other people, God only knows how many telephones it's been through before it actually gets shared.
Yep.
And who actually hears it from, what do they say? The horse's mouth? Is
Yeah.
that the saying? Like who actually hears it first from the actual source, saying like if it's about Pat Vellner, for instance, like who heard it from Pat Vellner or who heard it from Michelle Latanja, like who heard it from them, and then how does it get past
the media? The CrossFit media is tough for me. I mean, honestly, it just I feel like there's, and I've said this for multiple Sevan tints, but I feel like there's a I don't know. Have you ever heard of Vlad TV?
Just from you.
Yeah, he's kind of the most or he's the hottest thing in the hip hop space. I mean, I guess you could put him in a couple different spaces now. And he has centered his podcast and his business around the fact that he's always been welcoming to other podcasters that are doing the same thing, right? So he has DJ Academics on his podcast all the time. He has Charlemagne the God on his podcast all the time.
And these are what would be, I didn't mean to cut you off, but these
News, media.
Right. But would it be considered like his competitors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Other podcasters that are doing the same thing in his
running
space.
the same story and having the same. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
They talk about the same things, and he has them on his podcast all the time. He has, I mean, Boosie's a rapper, but he's still kind of, you can
in the space.
Yeah, you can. He'll talk about what's happening in the hip hop space, the streets, how people think. They'll talk about politics. They'll talk about whatever's happening just at that moment when they do that interview, which I've always thought was very, I think I've gravitated to him for that reason, because
Gravitated to who?
To Vlad. That's
Okay.
how, because he talks about what's happening in the space, and he also talks about the politics that's happening at the time. Right now he did a couple of interviews, and he was talking about Gaza. He was talking about, abortion. He was talking about race. He, like, everything that we all want to talk about, he's talking about. And I equate that. And when I think of how popular Vlad is, I think of Sevan in that same fashion when it comes to CrossFit. Yes, he wants to talk about CrossFit. He wants to help CrossFit. He wants to move the affiliates along and help them and do what's best for them. And he's also talking about what's happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely feel like Sevan for the CrossFit space is the same as Vlad for the hip hop space. It's kind of an education
Mm-hmm.
and also talking about what you want to talk about at the same time.
Yeah, or having those difficult conversations that maybe you don't know,
Yeah.
or maybe you, maybe you,
Right. Yes,
like,
that.
yeah, it's the difficult conversations of like that you usually only have in the privacy of your own home with
Yes.
that very intimate person, whoever that is, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a parent, whether it's a friend or whatever. But you have those very intimate conversations, especially when it comes to politics. You hear that statement all the time. I don't go to someone's house and talk about politics.
You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about politics.
You just don't,
Yeah.
you know,
Right. And they do.
and they openly talk about it without batting an eye.
Yeah. And the funny thing for me is for both of them, Vlad openly says he's hated on all the time. You can't go to Reddit, you can't go to Instagram without seeing somebody hating on his stuff. Same thing for Sevan. You can't go to Reddit or wherever and not see someone being like, you're homophobic, you're transphobic, you're whatever phobic, you hate people because you're pro Israel. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And only because they're saying their opinions.
Yeah.
Which for me is tough. Because if you can't have an opinion and put it out there and not get like zeroed in on and attacked for it, that's tough.
Well, unfortunately, that's just the world that we live in. You know, you can only have support if your opinion matches mine completely.
Right. So if you're in that echo chamber, you have to be in the echo chamber.
But also at the same time is that there's an opinion, right? Yeah. So say there's a right and there's this one and this one on its specific subject, for instance. It's this one or this one. So if you agree with this one, you're going to get all the praise from this side. And yes, we love you. You're on our team. We support you and you're going to have all that support. But the minute you have this opinion, this side's not going to agree with you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what opinion that you have. You could be for something, you can be against something. Either way, you're detrimental to the other side that you don't agree with 100%. And that's just unfortunately who we are. And again, it's more of that conversation of like, if it's important for you to have a conversation about, like they're making that choice every single time that they talk about those very touchy situations and those very touchy subjects and those like taboo things that you don't talk about. And what they're saying is that it's important for me to talk about it, even with all the backlash that I'm getting. And also they will always continue to get that backlash from that group of people that doesn't agree with what they're saying.
But I think okay, I find I'm going to make the comparison again, but I feel like Vlad, he will have people on, he'll talk about things that they don't necessarily agree with, but then he'll make points and they'll be like, oh, okay. So for instance, right, Sevan's podcast yesterday, he called Hiller at the end of his show. And it was talking about Hiller and how, Medeiros says like however many times that he says like per podcast. And Medeiros' mom came on and was like, hey, stop,
picking on my son.
Yeah, picking on my kid. He speaks from the heart. He's just trying to get his point across. Start focusing on, it's fine to, I'm paraphrasing, but basically it's fine to, point out the things that are wrong with people when they do stuff athletically. But the rest of it is just people trying to to be who they are.
Oh, she mama beared it.
Yeah,
Right? Okay.
absolutely.
Totally
Yeah.
mama beared it. Yeah.
No, she
Mhm.
she threw her mom card in the ring, and
Mama bear was like,
absolutely.
yeah. Yep.
And I thought Hiller handled it amazingly. I thought that when he got on there and he just was helping, it was constructive criticism basically. He was helping Madera or Justin understand that, saying like 45 times or it's a space filler,
Mhm.
right? It's used to fill space. I've done it a million times.
Me
I
too.
just realized that I had done it more than I'm comfortable with. And you have to start to figure out how to formulate your thoughts without space fillers.
Mhm.
That's how you become a man. That's what Hillary was saying. Like, have the thought in your mind, say it. If you don't have the thought in your mind, think about it first and then say it,
Mhm.
and don't have the fillers. And I can remember my grandmother telling me all the time, stop saying,
Mhm.
you don't need it.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a bad thing. But for me, the two podcasts, the Vlad TV for hip hop and the Sevan for the CrossFit space, to me, are equal. And the only reason why Sevan doesn't have the same amount of followers that Vlad has is basically because Vlad started first.
Yeah.
And
It takes time.
yeah,
That's like Sevon's future.
yeah.
It's like he's looking down the
I
line.
see it.
He's looking down the
People
line.
are gonna catch on to him, and yeah, it's not just gonna be the same way Vlad was. He was the hip hop space and then became so much more.
Mhm.
I think Sevan is gonna do the same thing because the message is the same. Y- You talk about what you're good and what you're good at, what you're happy with. For Sevan, it's CrossFit. For Vlad, it's hip hop. He was, a DJ and blah blah blah, and he leveraged that so that he could talk about things that mattered to him.
Mhm.
So now Vlad is talking about, you know, the plight of the Jewish people, the you know race and all those hot topic things, and Sevan's just doing it early,
Mhm.
and so it might turn some people off, but I I don't think that I think he needs to talk about it, and I think it's good conversations that have to be had.
Yeah, and I Velnor actually put something up whatever. It was like I forget what it said, but it's pretty much like most people don't fail, they quit.
Yeah.
And if someone cares enough about the messages that they're trying to share, regardless
They'll
of
keep trying
they'll
to
keep
share it.
trying to share
Yeah.
it. And that very much seems I mean, I believe that from I mean, I obviously don't know him as well as you do. But you share a lot about the conversations that you have had
I don't
and
know what you're
can
talking about. I don't know
uh
anybody very well.
besides me. But you guys, you from what I've seen, and especially the way that I saw him, when you did the podcast with him or whatever, is that um he's not doing this for fun. He's doing this for the bigger picture. He's doing this for the bigger message. And, whether it's for CrossFit, whether it's for trying to create a better world for his kids, whatever that bigger message is, I think that um, I don't see him kind of giving that up anytime soon.
They both want to tell a story, and I like both stories. I like Vlad's story, and I like Sevan's story, and I think they're both necessary.
Mhm.
And I think it's unfair, that they both take the hits that they're gonna take. But that that it comes with it, and
Unfortunately, life
yeah.
is very unfair in a lot of ways. And, you know, um,
But also, I think they've inspired a lot of people. If you watch DJ Academics go on Vlad's podcast,
Mhm.
you know that DJ Academics watched a lot of Vlad's podcast, right? And that's how he became who he became.
Mhm.
And not, I'm sure it wasn't just Vlad's
Yeah,
podcast, but
yeah. He
but
was very
Vlad was,
influential in
yeah,
his.
you can look at him and be like, hey, Vlad's daddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I think it's becoming the same way with Sevan too. There's a lot of kids that Vlad raised, and I think there's a lot of kids that Sevan raised, and it's only going to help, and it's only going to put more opinions into the space and more critical thinking into the space. And I, what, you can't beat that.
No, if you're open, if you, meaning people,
Yeah.
meaning if you're open to listening
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hearing things that are not how you once thought. I mean, you and I are both examples of that, of believing things very strongly for a very long time and then deciding that I'm
We,
just going to listen.
we need to look at
It
something else
it
and
doesn't
listen to something else.
yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to agree with every single thing that someone says that I used to not listen to or used to just scroll past and or get angry at because how dare you say that? You don't know, you don't understand what it's like and you don't understand this and you're not me and you're trying to like whatever, like but
You figure out how to think for yourself.
yep.
It's a way to figure out how to think for yourself. And I definitely think that people who offer that in the space is I can't respect them enough.
There's great power in being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
really is. And I can speak for myself, the work that I've done and, shout out to my coach Mary, like she challenged the fuck out of me and she put me in uncomfortable conversations so many times. And I'm grateful for it every single day.
Yeah.
Because it got me to move through my bullshit. It got me to see what the bigger thing was, the deeper thing was, and then the only way to grow is through. You have to go through it. You have to face it. You have to look at yourself in the mirror, and we don't like to do that when there's something that's said that we don't agree with. It's like, well, I don't want to talk about that more because it makes me very uncomfortable or it pisses me off. Where it's like, why does it piss me off? Why don't I want to talk about it? What is the part that it's okay to still not agree with it,
Right.
but at least give it an opportunity to listen, give it an opportunity to be listened to and for them to explain it. And then if you still don't agree, you don't agree.
Yeah. And that's
But
fair.
yeah.
I mean, today I thought it was a great thing, and I loved every second of it. Sevan he did the affiliate series, which also I think is amazing because who's doing anything for affiliates at this point? I mean, CrossFit HQ isn't doing anything for affiliates, so good
And the
job.
future of affiliates is still up in the air, right?
I mean,
There's still a lot of
that's
questions on what exactly is going to happen with the affiliates, and
yeah,
that's so sad. The way that I think of CrossFit, I think of the affiliates as the roots and the trunk of the tree.
yeah,
And then everything else is the branches. If you lose the trunk of the tree and the roots, then what's left, But
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh my god, it's a whole nother conversation that we have to have. But
Yeah.
yeah, he
He's
actually
doing the affiliate series you were talking about.
and he had a guy on today that was talking about male infertility, and I just in my mind, and the dude was so he was so willing to talk about it, which I thought was just absolutely amazing. Because most men don't want to admit that there's something that could possibly be wrong with them. And
Especially when it comes to reproduction.
right. And it just happens sometimes. It's not that they're not manly. It's not that whatever, but it just happens sometimes. And to hear that guy and how he handled it and how he went through that was just super awesome because I thought the whole time how you went through your infertility and how we had so many things to do and you got poked and prodded and whatever. And to hear a guy say it, um, yeah, that was yeah,
It's
these
also really brave that he finds people that are willing to have
that's what I'm
open
saying.
I mean, listen, I know I've said it to you privately. I don't know if I've said it on here, but the fact that you chose to share as much about your personal story on a platform like his with so many people watching you and
Yeah, it was
open
crazy.
and literally being as vulnerable as you were and as honest as you were, there's something that's a test to who he is.
Yeah.
That's a test to who Sevan is because he made you feel comfortable enough to get as uncomfortable as you got.
That's
And
power.
that's a
Yeah.
very powerful place and a very special power to have when it comes to people because obviously he's the one that's able to get more people to come on his show and be comfortable enough to
As
just
vulnerable
be
as you are. Yeah.
exactly because it's not you're not having you were not having a comfortable conversation but
No,
he made you
and not
comfortable
for
enough.
1 second did I ever feel like I couldn't trust him.
Mhm.
Not 1 second.
Yep.
And honestly, for that, I will always trust him.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Even if you don't agree with what he says, even if you're like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
maybe that wasn't maybe you shouldn't have said it that way," or "Listen,
But
have you
also
thought of
me
it that
too.
way?" You know?
Like, I'm sure he has looked at me and been like, "Hey, you fucked up."
Mhm.
But he loves me anyway.
Mhm.
And he yeah, it's unfair. It's like the minute you make a mistake or you say something that somebody else is just like, "Whoa, that's bad." You know what I mean? They're ready to just be like, "You're blackballed. That's it.
Yeah.
It's over."
Yep.
And that's unfair. And
You're always going to have that though. I think it just goes back to that saying of learning that not everybody's going to like you and
yeah,
not everybody's going to want you around and not everyone's going to want you to be around and you're not always going to have a spot at every single table. There will
yeah,
not be a seat for you at every single table that you think that you deserve. You know, and I had to learn that a lot of different ways in my life of thinking that I was friends, I was welcome, I was a part of something and I wasn't. And in order for me to be a part of something, I had to change who I was. And
no, you don't.
you don't. You don't. And he
Yeah, I just
he's doing okay. And I think
I definitely I'll go on I'll end this topic on this is just that I feel like he should be in that Vlad category. And for what he does for CrossFit and for what he does for the affiliates and for what he does for just people in general and educating people and letting people know what's happening
mhm.
and being honest. And I for me, I just think he's on that Vlad TV level. And
He'll get there.
he's already there. I
Mhm.
mean, like the followers might not
Well,
the
that's what I
number
mean.
of
I mean the
followers,
number of
but
followers will get there. Yeah.
his or the number of followers on YouTube. Not I don't
Oh.
know what he does on every other platform,
That
whatever.
yeah.
But
Yep.
he people are gonna start to see it. It's that turn is starting to happen anyway, especially I mean, Vlad already had his followers, but I think he's getting even more followers now because people are starting to be like, "Yeah, my thought process has changed. I'm starting to wanna listen to people that I might not have wanted to listen to before," and,
Mhm.
it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think the world is so loud right now and it's so crazy right now that it's actually slowing a lot of us down to stop and think about things differently
Yeah,
because it's so loud, because it's so crazy, because it's all over the place. And a lot of us now are taking that time to sit and think. And like you said, think for ourselves and
yeah,
what actually makes sense to me. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. And it's okay that it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't mean that I think less of you. I just don't agree with that. And I think that we're getting back a lot of us, I think, are getting back to that place where it's just like it's okay to not
agree all the time.
Right. It's okay to not 100%
And also,
agree
I
with
can
you.
still like you if I don't agree with you on some things.
Mhm.
I don't have to hate you
Yep.
because we don't agree on every freaking
Single
thing.
Yep. Yep. Listen, as long as I'm safe, you're safe, and our kid is safe, I'm okay with liking somebody that doesn't agree with me completely
And having conversations,
and
yeah.
having conversations about it. So
So that's my Sevan's hints for this week. Definitely this morning's podcast. Shoot, I'm so sorry that I can't find the name. I think the last name is Marlowe, but
but I
that
think going back to that original question that you said, or that Sevan,
oh
the actual hint
yeah,
that
we
you
got
gave
into a yeah. Go
of
ahead.
like, are people just wanting for that?
Do we miss grassroots Greg's CrossFit,
Yeah.
or are we loyal to CrossFit now?
Yeah, or are people trying to get CrossFit back to the way that it was and holding on so tightly to the way that it was that they're not willing to see?
That's what I'm asking. Are we
Yeah.
doing that? I am. I definitely, if you ask me what I'm loyal to, I'm loyal to grassroots Greg Glassman CrossFit, where we, roll Army colors, roll the American flag, give a crap. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm loyal to that. And so the more and more that it goes away from that, the less and less kind of
Mhm.
my loyalty kind of wanes, which sucks because I'm really not that person. Once I'm loyal, but
Yeah.
um
I'm loyal to the methodology of
yeah,
CrossFit.
because it's Greg's though.
Well, of course, yeah. I'm also somebody that believes that there's great
Oh,
change and
sorry,
growth.
that podcast is Rory Marlowe
Oh, there you go.
on Sevens. That was a good that was awesome.
Um, I'm loyal to Greg's methodology and the fundamentals of CrossFit, the roots of CrossFit. I also am somebody that believes and has lived through the power of change and growth. And so I think where I'm a little bit stagnant right now is the fact that there's so much changing and there's not too much clarity in what exactly is going on. So that right now is kind of where I'm stuck, where I'm waiting to kind of see what happens. The next question that kind of came out is like they're bringing more people, what, 25% or something out of the open, and that decreases the value of the open.
I think we have one more branch to see, and then I think people are gonna start to make up their minds.
But my question though about the open is that wasn't the open originally created to bring the entire community of CrossFit worldwide together?
Yes.
That is the message that we preach.
Yes.
So why does it have to be so important to these athletes, to the athletes that are going to the CrossFit Games? Does it need to be?
Because it was originally the way to get to the games. So it was important for the athletes, and it was community for the rest of us who just like we wanted to see what our fitness level was compared to last year.
But I think that's my point. That's the mixed messaging, because for all of us in the affiliates, it's more about the community. And so what it's done is it's taken away that from the athletes that are going to the CrossFit Games, of making it an important. You hear it all the time. Everyone that goes to the games, like, well, the open doesn't really matter. You have to be in this percentage. So if that's the case, then why is there that push to make it so important again? And just let that be from what the message is.
To go back to grassroots. To go back to grassroots means that the open is important for the athletes. And for us, it's just figuring out how our fitness was from last year, and if we've gotten better from last year, and if we can pick things up off the floor better, if we can, you know, do pull-ups better, because that means that our shoulder blades, the muscles in our shoulder blades and scapula and whatever are better. That 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 was what it was to start with. And we've gotten away from that. So now, I mean, the Open doesn't matter. It's not fun to watch the Open because the athletes aren't
Are
losing.
taking it serious.
Yeah, they're not losing their minds trying to do the Open. We lost our minds trying to do the Open because the athletes lost their minds trying to do the Open. We did workouts 3-4 times to try to whatever because the athletes were doing it.
I only tried to repeat a open workout once, and that was the dumbest idea we've ever done.
Yeah, it was so stupid.
We always
But
made that
we're
rule
not
one and
athletes.
done.
But
One and done,
but
and we tried to
but
do it twice.
makes it makes you want to try because the athletes are trying.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is a whole another conversation that we're gonna have about what the games separated from the affiliates means, or if the affiliates should.
Yeah. Do you keep them that separated, or do you walk the middle with both?
I don't know.
Because that's kind of.
I was talking to a friend. I want to get into this conversation with her when she comes on, but I was talking to a friend the other day, and it was kind of like, hey, listen, we need to return Rome to the people.
Mm.
You know, so we'll see. We'll have that conversation soon too. But yeah, good times.
All right.
Sevan tints.
Number 3.
Deuces.
Bye.